Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello and welcome back to the channel. We're here at the Shmuseum today. I have a bit of a controversial one, so bear with me a moment. But what if I were to sell my Porsche Taycan Turbo S? Now hold on a second, I know some of you are thinking that is quite a surprising idea for me to suggest, especially after doing the 1-year ownership update about 6 weeks ago. Others might be screaming with delight at the idea of the electric car departing from the petrol heads collection. But today I want to explain a little bit more about my thinking and what might happen next. Now, when I got back to the UK after the recent travels and did the update, I talked a little about how it was appropriate that something probably departs the garage in the next month or so, and I've not yet decided exactly what that's going to be. Now, lots of the cars are not here at the moment. We've had a little bit of a swap around over the last couple of days, but today I want to talk about the Taycan, talk a bit more about this. It's not about the fact that it's an electric car, it's about more mixing up the dailies, but what could replace it? What am I thinking in my head? What are the other ideas? What about the other cars that are coming in and how does that impact the Taycan? This is not a decision made, I should add at this point. Values are very high. We'll touch more on that as well. But today, talk about what the future is for the Porsche Taycan in the Shmeemobiles. As you can tell from the puddles around this thing, the weather outside is doing the typical British thing. It is very, very nasty at the moment. The car is charging up, plugged in as always to the CTEC ChargeStorm connected to our 2-car EV charger, the fast charger that we have here on 3-phase electricity, which means that this actually charges from empty to full pretty quickly. I think it's gone up around about 30% since I plugged it in. Let's have a quick check. It was on about 45% when I got here not all that long ago. We now have 74%, which I suppose is proof in the pudding. It's not that hard to live with an electric car, and I've touched on that an awful lot. Basically, you need to have your own charger. If you're relying on the charging infrastructure, it's a nightmare. But like I said, this is not a video about electric cars per se. It is, of course, my only electric car. It was my first electric car, my first foray into that world, understanding, experiencing, living with such a thing. And I've done a lot with it. I took it over to Germany. I've driven it at the Nürburgring. I've daily driven it. I use it a lot to go from home to here at the garage, back and forwards a couple of miles. It is very helpful for that. I only had to plug it in probably once a week or so when I'm doing that every day of the week. I've taken it on some longer journeys across the UK. But fundamentally, for me, the Taycan was always an experiment. It's a very big car to daily. I don't need this. I'm normally on my own with very little luggage, so I don't need a car that is 5 meters or so long and carrying quite so much weight. I've regularly spoken about the fact that I'd be much happier to be dailying a 2-seat electric car, something like a Cayman, something like that if it existed. Of course, a lot of manufacturers are working in that space, but at the moment, if you want a 2-seat electric sports car, you need to pay a couple of million for an Avaya, a Navera or a Batista. There's nothing in the more sensible price category. And when it comes to dailies here at the garage at the moment, we have the Taycan, we have the G63, we have the M3, and technically also the Focus RS Heritage, the GR Yaris, plenty of cars that I can basically daily drive. But what's quite interesting to me is what's coming next. Now, I like driving exciting sports cars. That's not a secret. It's how I ended up doing all of this in the first place. And inbound in about 2 or 3 months is my Ferrari SF90 Stradale. Now, the SF90 has an electric range of 25 kilometers, 16 miles, which is enough for me to get from the new home I'm probably about to move to the garage and back, just charging up on electric. And I have this weird idea that would actually be quite fun to do, but still obviously being a hybrid with a combustion engine, a 4-litre twin-turbo V8 to kick in if you want to drive a little bit further. And I've ordered my SF90 in a very comfortable road spec. It's not the Assetto Fiorano. It has the regular seats, well, the style seats, the upgrade, but not the carbon fiber buckets. And it should be a really nice car for the purpose. So part of me is thinking, am I mad enough to use an SF90 as a daily? Would that replace the Taycan in my garage? I think in terms of pure electric cars to buy for that purpose, of the cars that are out there on the market, there's nothing that really grabs at me that I really want to purchase next. For example, the Audi RS e-tron GT, which is effectively a Taycan in a different set of clothes. The Mercedes EQS or the EQS 53 from AMG. I've not driven one, but it doesn't make me scream, you know, I really want to have that in the garage next. So it's kind of, this I think is the best option for me of the electric cars on the market, even to this date. But the thing is, I do have a bit of an addiction with swapping around my daily driver. I like to change it up. I like to experience different cars. And it's not to say that there is anything wrong with this. In fact, of the different Taycan models, having the Turbo S is the pretty cool place to be. It's the flagship, fastest option, 760 horsepower. It is blisteringly quick. When we've done some drag races with it, of course, it would now be outdone by the Tesla Model S Plaid with 1,000 horsepower. But this thing is pretty cool. Of course, they've now made the Cross Turismo, the Sport Turismo, the GTS. There are all sorts of different variations, different motors, different performance levels, and they're doing very well. The number of Taycans I see on a daily basis here, if I drive a couple of miles from centre of London to here, I probably see 10 of them, 15 of them. Taycans are everywhere here. It's crazy to say that given the price point and given what it is, but obviously there are so many corporate benefits, tax advantages to buying electric cars, that these have really just flown off the shelves, and there are loads of them around, which is part of why I go back to what I said earlier, that the values for them are actually really very high. If I sold it now, after about 14 months of ownership, I'm not going to have lost very much money. And of course, as a businessman, as well as a car fanatic, the prospect of being able to change into something new and not have lost a lot of money on the car that I've been driving a fair bit, that's quite a win. So it's always something that's there in the back of the mind to maybe consider as an option for this. Obviously, we're charging at the moment, but we'll unplug it shortly and head out for a little drive in the Taycan. But inside here, you know, it's a very comfortable, very nice place to be. The technology level is very high, the luxury is very nice, the materials, this car has the upgraded leather, all of those gold anodized touches around the cup holders, the steering wheel, the door handle, that trim piece along the door. It's a really nice thing, but it's largely wasted on me. I'm lugging a lot of car around for very little reason, and I'm partly considering even trying one of the small city electric cars, the likes of the Mini E, the Fiat 500 La Prima, the Honda E, one of those type of cars, just for a bit to experience it, to experience different things. This was, I think at the time I bought it, the ultimate flagship EV. If you wanted an electric car, the Taycan Turbo S was the big daddy of them all, the standout car, and that's pretty much why I went for it, as something to experience and to learn. You know, that wasn't because somebody gave me a nice discount or said I need to try an electric car. It was out of personal interest as a petrol head owning a garage of cars with combustion engines, to experience this world of EV, to see a little bit more what it's all about. And you know, this car's I've got a few errors at the moment. The tyre is 0.1 bar below, but we are up to 76%, so that is quickly climbing, which is always nice. 159 miles. I do have a small problem with the range. The Turbo S has a very small range to begin with, and I'm pretty sure it's going down as the car gets older. The fact that I've owned it now for over a year, I think the maximum theoretical range has gone down by about 20 miles since I bought this car. And that doesn't bode very well if you're looking further into the distance. I'm not sure what's going to happen with battery technology. I've read a little bit about this from other Taycan owners and other EV owners in general. If you think about it with the likes of our mobile phones, that's just what happens. It's not a good thing though. It doesn't bode for these still running and being completely usable in many, many years' time down the line, which is what's so special about cars like the SLS and the GT8, for example. Those will still be on the road, or at least still kept in running order in 50 years' time. No question about it. Those are very special cars to me, and it will be very, I suppose, relatively easy to keep them maintained, whereas something like this is a little bit different. Now, like I said, the weather outside is a little bit dubious, but let's go for a quick run and touch on this a little bit more. Herein lies the problem for me. If I were to sell this car, I would no longer have the enjoyment that comes from it. And you might be thinking, how as a petrol head can you enjoy driving something like this? But there's an amazing serenity to driving this car. It is quiet, it's calm, it's peaceful, but if you pop it into Sport Plus, it also moves in a way that no car should be able to move. It is so fast and so easy to drive fast, it's a little bit crazy. Now, arguably in your daily driver, you don't need something that is quite that level of speed, but I'm not going to pretend that it isn't fun, because it's really very, very, very fun. Now I'm going to pop it back into normal because we are chilling on countryside lanes at the moment, and it would be, well, when it's this wet and greasy, a little bit silly to completely bomb around everywhere. So it's a car that I just like driving. You get out of it really calm. It's very Rolls-Royce-esque. I've talked a little bit about that before. Because the ride quality of the Taycan is so good, when you do get to your destination, you're calm, you've been in something peaceful, you haven't been stressed about the journey. You know, if you're driving in a supercar daily, sometimes it gets a little bit like too much. You just need to back off from being, you know, the intention. People drive differently towards you or around you when you're in a supercar. There's always the noise and the vibration, so it's not relaxing in the same way. It's very fun, but sometimes that's not what you want. So I do very much enjoy this EV experience, this way of life, you could say, this style of driving, because it just works really, really, really well. There are things, like I said, about this car that I don't like that much. It's huge, it's big, it's heavy, it's too wide in any parking spaces, it's too long for any central London parking spaces. It's great that we currently have the congestion charge discount, so I can drive this car into the centre of London for free. Not that it makes sense to spend £160,000 on a car to go and drive it to save £15 a day on the congestion charge, but it's a nice perk, and you only have to pay for a short period of parking in Westminster in the centre of London. You don't have to pay for the full time you're there. So there are some really nice perks which you're constantly aware of, and they feel like great wins, which just make it really fun to be in an electric car. But then on the other hand, there's this whole thing, like when I got back, it only had 50%, which is about 90 miles or so of range. So if I wanted to have gone somewhere that's a decent distance away, I'd have had to have charged it first. And that's constantly there, that constant like, not sure about this, not sure if that's, you know, what you want. It's just potentially a little bit frustrating. Now, obviously infrastructure is improving very fast, and I'm a big fan of that, and I'm certainly going to own another electric car, so do not treat this as bashing electric cars or in any way saying that I have a problem with that, because I definitely don't. It's more my personal desire just to try something new, just to have a new car, just to mix up what the daily is, and conscious that I'd quite like something to depart from the garage. You know, that was a pretty chopped up road we've just driven along, just cruises, and if I'm going to chop up and change things around in the garage a little bit with the cars that are coming, and I know it's not the wisest to replace a practical car with a silly car, but we're lucky to have some long-termers like the RS3, you know, the team car that Brad and Tom are driving at the Schmuseum. If you're wondering why I didn't include that on my list of daily cars earlier. And that kind of thing significantly obviously helps. We will hopefully have some other cars in the future on rotation. So if I need a daily, I've got access to dailies. So maybe I would let it go and after 2 months be like, nope, I need another one, and if so, I'll purchase another one, probably a new Sport Turismo or something like that. Maybe even try the GTS just to change it up a little bit. So it's a combination of the fact that this is currently worth a lot of money, with the fact that I've owned it for a bit over a year, that's making me think that maybe now it is time. You know, I had no long-term plans when I purchased it. I didn't know if it would be 3 months or 3 years. Obviously it's closer to the former, but it's had a pretty decent stint. So I'm curious on your thoughts really about the Taycan, about whether it would be sorely missed or whether we should just mix it up for a bit. Let's just say that the drive onwards on some country lanes was pretty good fun. Now park back up though. I need to get the Taycan back on charge. We're still at about 75%, haven't gone too far or too crazy with it. The usual do this, although when it's wet, that either tends to not work or tends to not pick up. I think that might be because, oh no, there we go. I was going to say because it's not properly detecting that it's unlocked with the key in my pocket. Then just plug this in. It's super easy. And anybody who thinks that's a chore or a hard process, I'm sorry to say, is wrong. It just becomes normal. And it's that mentality shift, you know, a petrol car, you're basically running it pretty much empty and then back to full. With this, you just want to top it up every bit, top it up, top it up, top it up. You just get in the habit of plugging it in whenever you park it anywhere. And at the moment it's down in Sport Plus, which hunkers the bodywork down, lowers the suspension, and looks really pretty nice, especially in this combination. When we went to Dub Customs to do the Inazatec Midnight Green, we did the Aurum Gold wheels at Whoops Will Fix It. We've added the Xyrus Engineering carbon fiber parts around the front, the blade behind the wheels, and the lip spoiler at the back. It's a good looking thing. So this video is really, I suppose, some musings, sharing my thoughts as we go. This is not decision made that I'm selling the Taycan. I think it's a unique car in the garage, being electric, being the only Porsche that I currently have in the garage. So I'm not like, let's rush it out the door, but I really don't want to say goodbye to the G63 yet. So that's going to be hanging around. The Yaris and the M3, they'll probably depart at some point. They're not going to be around forever, but they're not really the same. You know, they're a lot less expensive than those two, so it's a slightly different conversation when it comes to the garage overall. And I certainly don't want to sell any of the standout cars, the SLS, the GT8, things like the 675, the STO. Some people might say that the AMG GTR Roadster shouldn't be here forever, but I do really like that car. It's very smart, very elegant. I know it's lurking under the cover at the moment, and it's just a car that I really enjoy driving. So, swings and roundabouts, just some thoughts during Christmas time with very little going on, with some horrible weather outside, about the cars in the garage. And as always, curious on your thoughts as well. So do let me know in the comments down below, always having a listen. What do you think could be an interesting car to see on the channel as a daily of this kind of capacity? Maybe, you know, another, let's say, quirky, unusual thing, or one of the other electric cars that are out there. Anyway, for today, I guess that's the end of my waffle in a way. I apologize for that, but just thinking what's next with the Taycan, what will be the long-term future with it. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I appreciate your support an awful lot, and who knows, with the values of these things, maybe it's time to say farewell. We shall see. I'll see you next time though. Thanks again and have a very happy new year. Cheers.